Hey folks, John and Cam here again, talking about CyberArk and Red Hat technology. We're going to get a little bit more detailed this time on just what it looks like to have these solutions with Ansible automation platform, OpenShift, and then the CyberArk ecosystem of security tools. So let's start, as always, with Ansible a little bit here. John, what is it going to look like day one when someone starts using AAP with the CyberArk PAM system?
It's a great question, right? And a lot of people are worried, like, do I have to rip everything out and start over? It's going to take a lot to change all of my code. I don't know, disrupt the workflow for my developers or anyone else that's working on the project. So we've addressed those issues with our tight partnership with Red Hat. We have certified integrations for both Ansible as well as OpenShift, right? And then for Ansible, if you're already using the Ansible Vault, which is fine if like you're limited to that area, but if you want to have consistency with your security policies across the entire organization and control everything from one place, the CyberArk integration with Ansible Vault will allow you to keep your code as it is in place, and it won't disrupt any of the workflow you have. So you can keep the same APIs you had to access Ansible Vault. You don't need to change those.
Yep. So if you wanted to keep using Ansible Vault, that's perfectly fine. And you can also be pushing down the secrets into Ansible Vault based on Conjure. So this
synchronized with Conjure.
This is still working. We've got Conjure talking down to that. You can also use CyberArk's Vault with Conjure as well if you wanted to do secrets that way.
Yeah, because those are synchronized with the CyberArk Vault for more of the human side of things, synchronized with Conjure. So everything's like synchronized together. That way you have complete visibility and centralized control over your secrets policy.
Yep. And you mentioned like isolated secrets being an issue in different parts of the organization. Can you tell us a little bit more about why that's a problem?
Yeah, so we talk a lot about something called security islands. And that's where someone's like spun up their own vault. Now we're seeing this happen more with some of the vault cloud providers. Someone I've worked with in the past, they talked about how they're trying to secure the secrets across their entire company. It's a large financial bank. But their DevOps team had spun up a cloud instance, and they started to use the native secrets management tool that's built into that. And the message they got back from those engineers was, well, they're being secured. Yeah. Why do you care? I quote, right? The answer is, like, they're not able to verify the policies. They're not able to have consistent policies across the board or verify when they're being rotated or even control that. Yep. So it's a silo within the organization for security, which ends up being a security island. And, you know, back in the day when DevOps was new, people talked a lot about, you know, getting rid of those silos. And that's part of what we want to do here. So you can still use some of the tools that you're used to using and do your best to not disrupt their workflow, but also eliminate those silos to provide consistency and for security as well as proof of compliance so that you can prove that things are being done and not have to go to another group in the organization and trust that they're doing it.
Yeah, I have to say, Security Island sounds like a great James Bond movie too.
Yeah.
I think it'd be great.
It would be.
But in this case, we don't want them, right? We want them to.
They're bad.
They're bad. But Security Island, bad. Also,
think of Lost.
Think of Lost.
Yeah, that was a bad island.
Yeah, right? Bad island. Okay. Bad island. Lots of secrets there too. But back to this. So we have AAP, and AAP also has the ability, like we mentioned last time, to automate aspects of the CyberArk PAM environment. Things like onboarding accounts, offboarding certain accounts. This is really, really useful because it kind of allows the security administrators to take advantage of what they're securing in the first place. And it allows everybody to kind of support each other in being efficient, making everybody's lives easier. Automation kind of starts with that in mind, like how do we make everybody's lives a little easier here? And also making sure that, you know, if somebody is getting, is leaving the organization, right? You can have it mapped out, everything that needs to happen to offboard somebody successfully. I've heard horror stories about people who were not offboarded properly. And then later on, maybe you find out that they accessed some payment card information or something horrible. But it wasn't them. It was somebody who gained their credentials that were never properly removed.
That's right.
So really, really good that we can support each other in that way, of course. CyberArk, I've mentioned this before in a previous video, but also certified the solution to make sure that it works together. So we have joint support for AAP, automating PAM also. Okay, I know you've been waiting patiently. Let's move over to the OpenShift side of the house again. We've added in some details here as well. What are we looking at over here? I see Kubernetes secrets, I see containers.
That's right, we got containers, we got Kubernetes, all sorts of fun stuff, right?
So day one, what's happening with OpenShift on day one?
Right.
Adoption of CyberArk.
So this is where developers come, into play. Obviously, it's the same with Ansible, but like developers also love Kubernetes, right? And you got open source, and they may be set in their ways, right? And so they probably already educated themselves or up and running. I just came back from KubeCon not too long ago, and
hot ticket,
yeah. And a lot of people I talk to like, oh, I have Kubernetes secrets, right? But they don't understand that they're actually securing the secrets. They're kept in etcd. By default, they're not encrypted. They're not being rotated. And even if you encrypt them at rest, they're not being rotated. And it's a lot of work to change those.
Yeah.
There was a breach of a cloud CI/CD, that where people had to go in and change all of their credentials, even if they're encrypted, because they were breached, right? And they just complained about how much work that was, right? So you want to make sure they're being rotated and secured automatically, right? And a lot of developers working in Kubernetes are familiar with something called Kubernetes secrets, not to be confused with a secret within Kubernetes, and with the misunderstanding that those are being secured for them. They're not, right? But if they're already using that, don't be thinking, okay, I have to go and change all my code and all of this and change how I work, or got to learn some new API that I don't want to learn, right? That's not necessary. And on day one, we can integrate with Kubernetes secrets, and they can keep the same interface for the developers. They don't have to change what they're doing. Doesn't mean there won't be any change, right? Because you'll be using a new tool, right? But we can synchronize the secrets from Conjure, and we can push those to Kubernetes secrets to make sure that they're being rotated and encrypted and secured from that standpoint. Yep. So it won't change the developer workflow.
Yeah, and it's really a secure process because you're able to really, in very strong detail, determine which containers that are being spun up have access to which parts of your organization, and only give them access, least privilege access, for the least amount of time they need as well.
Right.
This in a microservices architecture and in an OpenShift environment is going to be really handy. You have front-end apps talking to back-end apps, talking to databases. So as we're talking from one container to the other, we know that that's secure. Maybe we have some data that we're accessing in a database, only getting access to that data with least privileges for as little time as possible, right. Rotating that along the way. Again, I think the story of this is assume that at any point you could be compromised, and just secure and limit the possibility of that becoming a real problem as much as you can.
That's right. As we talked about earlier at the beginning, we were talking about the big picture, the problem.
Yep.
You want to limit the blast radius,
yes,
right? You want to limit the damage every step you can get. And you want to provide security in layers, yep. Right, to help mitigate that.
Absolutely. It's really elegant when I appreciate how all of our different solutions are helping one another out. I appreciate how we're really securing the environments of the customers and allowing them to innovate at the same time and not getting in the way. I think we've really found a way to fuse the security and the speed this time, and I'm really proud of that. Well, John, thank you so much for breaking all this down with me. I feel like I understand it even better than I used to, and just have appreciation for all the hard work that's gone into this.
Definitely.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.